Do we have,
Okay, one more thing.
Test, there we go. Hi, everyone. Look at the screen, we do have standing room only still. Actually, I think there are a couple empty seats. Can you hear now or no? Yeah? Very good. It's actually a rare thing when someone says they can't hear me, so it's actually that's nice. There are a couple seats scattered around if anybody wants to get cozy and neighborly. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Mike. I'm the new general manager for the association. Thank you everybody for coming out to the Stormwater Credits information. I'd like to thank our guest speaker, Stuart Kuhn, and then also Ron Marino from the city, and I didn't catch your last name. Boschley, okay. Very good. Just so everyone's aware, we have where's the other camera? There's one there. One right in front of me. So we are recording the evening because some people are not able to make it tonight. We're not doing a live stream. We're going to be posting the video on the Facebook page.
Not the group, the page that we post information on.
Okay, yeah. So in just a minute, Terry Party is going to come up and give us an introduction to the topic, followed by Stuart, who's going to give us a presentation. You can see it already started there. Afterwards, please hold your questions. There's going to be a question and answer period. And then with respect to all of our guests that are here, to be able to get home at a decent time, we're asking to please try to keep your questions to at least a minute. And then once we're doing the questions, Jen's going to walk around with the other microphone, assuming that one works, as well. And we're going to try to do in the order that we see the hands as best we can. There's a lot of faces here, so we'll do the best we can. Elephant in the room. Yes.
Can I suggest something? Keep moving the microphone away from you and us in the back. You can control the volume by how close you put it to your mouth. But also, I can hear the introduction to the camera.
Sure, I'll be happy to do that again. And thank you.
Can you describe who they are and what they represent?
They'll probably be able to do. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just giving a brief an agenda, if you will, or of the frame of the picture of what's going to happen tonight. Terry's going to give a more of an introduction of who everybody is. Perfect. And thank you for the note. So I left off about the elephant in the room. There's some tension about this evening. That might be a bit of an understatement. So what I'm about to say is probably corny. If you get to know me, you might learn that I am. And hopefully those of you who have actually gotten to know me know I'm also going to try to be honest here. I've had the opportunity, so I've been here for 2 months. I've had the opportunity to get to know or have conversations with quite a few people here. And I gotta say, this is actually a very intelligent group. They gotta be able to purchase a home here. Most likely that's going to be the case. And there's a lot of different opinions that people have about how things are supposed to be done. That would be an understatement. One thing that everybody has here in common is that you really care about the association. The fact that you showed up here tonight shows that you really care about the association. Sometimes you're so vocal about things shows how much you care about the association. We all might want to come to it from different directions, and that's a good thing. That way we're going to spot things other people might miss. What I'm going to request for this evening is that try to have an open mind, and that's for myself and the panel as well. Try not to come to any poor conclusions about how things are going to work. We're just trying to figure out what's going to be best for the association, which may be the water credit program. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not. Maybe it'll be today, or maybe it'll be good in the future, but not today. We don't know. Let's figure all that out together. That's basically all that I want to ask. everybody. With that in mind, Terry?
Wow, this is quite a turnout. Very impressive. So thank you, Mike, for that. My name is Terry Biancardi. I'm a director on our association's board. I'm the chair of Meadow Management, and I served in a voluntary role as project manager for phase 1 and phase 2 of the stream restoration. Before we get started, I want to talk for a minute about where we are with this whole stormwater credits process. This night, and everything so far, is about information sharing and receiving, because the alternative compliance program is complicated. There's a lot to know and consider. So there is no decision on the table. It's not even on the agenda. What we're trying to do is provide enough information so the community can start to form an opinion. The response from the Survey Monkey gave us a pretty good indication of the community's initial thinking. However, what came out most strongly from the survey was that people wanted more information. So that's what tonight is about, providing more information, and hopefully for us on the board with management to continue to get a sense of the community's take on this. How's the audio? Okay? Okay. I also want to make clear that due to the potentially large sum we're talking about, what's that? That because of the potentially large sum we're talking about, the board does not have the legal authority to take action on its own. A sale would require a vote of the membership, you all. This means 450 yes votes. That's an incredibly high bar. We generally get only around 225 total votes for board elections. You might think, if this is so hard, why would we even bother? My answer is because as fiduciaries of this corporation, we have a duty to disclose this possibility and frame it in a way that the community could decide to take action or not. It would be really wrong, in my opinion, to be aware of this possible revenue stream and not bring it forward despite the challenges, because again, the decision is yours. It's my great honor to introduce our guest tonight, but before I do, I want to give you some context and background as to how all this came about. Why is Meadowview, of all places, being presented with the opportunity to generate stormwater credits, especially on a nature-based engineering system, which as far as we know, hasn't been done before? So to explain, until June of last year, our guest, Stuart Kuhn, served as the City of Temecula's stormwater engineer, where he was for 7 years. In that role, he was responsible for reviewing and approving our plans and permits for phase 1 and phase 2, overseeing our stormwater protection plan, and ultimately ensuring our project received the city's grading permit. So he came to know our project really well, and I think he was professionally impressed with our strategy of utilizing the forces of nature to build safer infrastructure. And I came to think of him as a friend of Meadowview, as he and Ron Marino intervene on our behalf to have the city waive tens of thousands of dollars in grading permit fees. He argued that our project was a benefit to the city by improving overall water quality in our stream and reducing the sediment load transfer, which was our property, washing into the downstream retention basin, which they then had to spend a lot of money carting away. Also during Stuart's time at the city, he created the Alternative Compliance for Stormwater program, which, if not the first, was one of the first of its kind in the state. This cutting-edge program has earned the city millions of dollars, and it's representative of a larger trend that we are seeing at the state as well as national level, away from traditional stormwater management and concrete channels, towards these nature-based systems, which frequently also bring a swath of other benefits, everything from grant funding to recreation, aquifer recharge, cleaner water, habitat and wildlife for far fewer dollars. So when Stuart left the city to go into private practice, I think Meadowview was on his mind. And off his own back, he did a preliminary watershed study, got his findings, and then reached out to us to let us know that our stream restoration project could be eligible for the ACP program. Also with us tonight, you know, is Ron Marino. He's been very instrumental over the years too, and Annie Bosterly, who are going to be able to answer any questions after Stuart's presentation. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for coming in tonight. and ask you to give both Stuart and Ron and Annie a warm Meadowview welcome.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. Can you hear me in the back? Good. All right, so tonight we're going to be talking about alternative compliance for stormwater in the meadow here. This is what is stormwater. When it rains, the water compacts the ground. Anything that's been spilled or deposited on the ground gets washed into the waterways, particularly into the meadow, into the stream going through the meadow. And so these are some of the sources of pollutants that come into the streams and waterways. Here in our watershed, our streams are impaired for nutrients, which is things like fertilizer, pet waste, that sort of thing. So those are the problems that we have in our downstream receiving waters, like San Margarita, Creek and Estuary out of the Pacific Ocean. In addition to some of those pollutants, there's also a concept of hydromodification. The upper watershed of area that washes into the meadow stream used to be natural, and that used to soak a lot of the water into the ground. When that was developed and paved, that water, when it rains, instead of soaking into the ground, it now runs off and runs through your meadow, and that has caused the erosion that created the vertical banks, it created the dangerous situation that necessitated the restoration project. And so this project has alleviated both of those conditions and has created a benefit that hasn't yet been quantified and documented. And so that's what we're going to talk about. So this image illustrates what hydromodification is. Think of you take a garden hose and you shoot it at the dirt and it erodes the dirt away. That's the same thing that's happened. Before, that stream used to trickle before they built that whole neighborhood. And now you got a bunch of water coming through there, ripping that stream bed out, digging it down and sizing it into the ground, and then you get the steep banks. And that's what's been corrected through that project. The regulatory document that this is not just a problem in Meadowview, it's throughout the states, throughout the nation. It's anywhere you have development, you have these issues, and we've learned about these issues. And to combat them, the state has issued the MS4 permit. The MS4 permit regulates new development to put in features to control the discharge of pollution and to control hydromodification in the natural waterways. In the nature-based solution, so there's different types of ways to address these two problems with pollution. You can do an engineered basin that is not a natural feature. It's very structured, integrated into the project. If you drive through any new development, you go through the new Somers Bend development, you'll see huge ponds out there, and that's what those are. Those ponds, the water from that development goes into that pond, it filters through that pond, it removes out the nutrients and the gunk, and the clean water is slowly released out of that pond so it doesn't erode the downstream stream, and it removes the pollutants in that pond. Similarly, when the Meadowview Stream restoration project was done, there were some depressions that were placed along the tops of bank, and those naturally achieve the same thing through a natural system. So what we can do is the volume of that water that's retained, we can quantify that. We can look at the total area. We know how much rain falls, and so we get a cubic footage of water that's retained in those systems. We can quantify that and put that into the credit trading system so that those credits can be made available to other developments. So those developments, instead of doing that on their project site, they can purchase those out of the credit bank. Okay, and so that is really important for places like downtown Temecula, where you don't want a pond in downtown Temecula. You want shops right next to each other so that you don't have to walk past the pond. You're not using up that real estate in downtown Temecula to build a pond. So those areas, they put a filter in the curb catch basin, they filter that water, and an equal benefit is done somewhere upstream to capture an equivalent amount. This is your meadow. The orange or tan line around the outside kind of represents your open space of the meadow. And the portion of the project that Terry spearheaded is shown there with the black lines around it. So you can see the percentage of that. It's a very small piece that we're talking about. Furthermore, it's where the natural stream goes through. It's subject to U.S. Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Army Corps regulations. You cannot just go in there without significant permits, etc. So that's the limits of where this is. It's about 3,000 feet long. The project took these vertical banks and it laid them back at 3 foot horizontal to 1 foot vertical, very flat, and then placed erosion control protection at the toe slope, keep those from creeping back and eroding back. At the top of those slopes, there was a berm put in place with water retention. That's where those depressions are at, so that all the water from the valley sides comes down and stores in those depressions at the top of the slope. It seeps into the ground, and that keeps it from entering any pollutant in there. It keeps it from entering into the stream. It's stored in the soil. It fertilizes that soil and it hydrates that soil, so you get a better ecosystem growth there. Your meadow is naturally irrigated through that process, and these are very shallow. We're not talking 6 foot deep. We don't have a pool. We have very shallow depressions. These things are less than 18 inches of water. I think it's less than 12 inches of water that we end up ponding there, and then that soaks into the ground over about 72 hours. Again, here's some more illustrations of that. You can see the red area on the figure to the left shows the scope of that, and then a detail of the red area on the right. The blue areas are some of the depressions, and there's also some more areas in here along the tops of the banks here. So that's on both sides. So the water off the slopes comes down into the creek and is captured in those, soaks into the ground. Some of it percolates back into the stream and lets that stream keep flowing for a while, and that sustains the natural wildlife, etc. Okay, so I went in and I looked at the topo. I looked at the topography of that area, what's draining there. I looked at how big those depressions were. I figured out how much water we caught. Based on the amount of area, the amount of rainfall we get here, those capture 375,000 gallons with a 1-inch rainfall event. That's a lot of water. So our credits are in cubic feet of water. So 375 gallons translates into about 50,000 cubic feet. That's what our credit limit is. So we got 50,000 credits. Now those credits on the market right now, for somebody to build those credits on their site right now, costs about $12 to $15. And multiplying that out, the value of the credits you have currently available between $600,000 and $750,000 worth of credit. So how do you trade these credits? How does this is the functional mechanism of how these credits are exchanged between a buyer and a seller. So Meadowview in this instance would be a credit generating project. A developer building a community or some kind of development would be a credit purchasing project. And the credit system is the mechanism that the city operates to facilitate the transfer of those credits between projects. And the general steps here, a lot of these you guys already have done. So initiate the project. Terry started years ago. You built the stream restoration, you built the earthwork that captured the water. That's in there. So that she got the plans approved. We still have yet to do a water quality management plan to document that. The engineering services to do that, to map it all out, and create the report. It's about $30,000. Once that report is completed, it's submitted to the city. They review it for accuracy, make sure it's compliant with state laws. When that's approved, then those credits are listed in the city's credit bank, and then developers that want to purchase credit now know about those credits, and they can contact you to purchase those credits from you. The actual exchange of the credits and the exchange of money is done outside of the city. The city is not a participant in that. We did that on purpose to keep the city out of any negotiations or anything like that. And it's done through an escrow process similar to buying a house. The buyer deposits funds into an escrow account. The seller completes a transfer agreement. That's sent to the city for review and approval. Once that's done, it comes back to escrow. Escrow releases the funds to the seller. And that completes the transaction. So, some of the terms and conditions. The project and the features, earthworks need to remain in place. So, those features, because they're natural, there's no maintenance required. They just naturally function. Sediment moves into and through them. Water moves into and through them. The vegetation is natural. You don't have to do anything to them. There's no maintenance obligation for those natural systems. Those ponds over at Somers Bend for new developments, those require a ton of maintenance. That's where natural systems are really a better way to go. We're creating a natural ecosystem that the animals and the plants can come and thrive in and without interruption. If it is damaged by a large storm or through time or an act of God like a big storm or something, there's no obligation to come in and repair or replace these systems. And there won't be any maintenance or regular inspection or reporting that you guys will have to do as far as these credits go. So you got to keep those in place. Should you have a project that impinges on that footprint, if you wanted to build a pickleball court, where those are at. That's it. For example. If you have to remove them for any reason. Don't say pickleball. If you have to remove them for any reason, they can be removed and replaced somewhere else on site and relocated. You have to do another engineering plan to show that, or buy credits from another project somewhere else. So just because you create them, just because you do it doesn't mean you cannot undo it. It just takes some engineering and design to do that. The value of the credits, that $12 to $15 per cubic foot that I put, is today's market value. I can't tell you what it's going to be in 6 months or a year. I don't know if the price is going to go up. I don't know if the price is going to go down. I don't know if everybody's going to jump on this and try to do another project and make credits for as cheap as possible. I hope they do. That'd be really great. Or I don't know if you guys are going to be the only game in town and you can charge whatever you want for the credits because people want them. However, like I said, every developer has the option to do on-site stormwater BMP, so that's what you're competing against right now. You're not competing against anybody else producing credit. And the payment is a one-time payment, just like if you sell a piece of real estate, you sell it one time. It's not a recurring stream of revenue, and there's no expenditure that you have to do any maintenance on it. There's been some discussion about legal encumbrances. This is section 5.3 out of the guidance manual that we had available in the back. And I think Terry, can they contact you if they need a copy of that?
They can go back. They're done.
So there's been some discussion about this paragraph, and it talks about the locally recorded encumbrances. I think this is better. If you guys can see my little red dot. Locally recorded encumbrances provide the city with sufficient enforcement authority to enter and maintain an event, a credit rating, generating a credit using project is out of compliance with the associated WPMP. That is targeted at engineered pond facilities such as in the Sonnet or any new development or engineered systems. It's not targeted specifically to natural systems that just function naturally. You're not trying to consolidate a bunch of an entire community into a half-acre pond. You have just natural areas flowing into natural systems. So I think Ron's going to speak a little later, a little more detail on that. And I'll turn it over to Terry. She'll take it from here.
Thanks, Stuart. Awesome. Right, okay, so this is more about the HOA stuff, and obviously Stuart can't talk about that. Yeah, so we already kind of went over a little bit about the voting right, obligation. I think board members have the ability to sell up to 5% of our annual revenue a year, and this far exceeds our annual revenue, so it would have to go to a vote. Things we would need to figure out, if the board decided to hold a vote, which could be a year out or something, we have a task list that we would have to tackle. One of those would be figuring out exactly what our obligations are with regards to the fact that we're a nonprofit. What can we spend our money on? I don't know exactly. How would we manage the fund? I think that's really important. We would have to figure that out. I like the idea of having an endowment fund that is specifically, pickleball people, specifically for the use of the meadow. Because I think, I've been managing it sort of in an ad hoc way for 10 years. And I look out there and I see there's lots of problems and lots of expensive things, repairs that need to be done. And I don't really know how we're going to fund it. This stream restoration with all the funding from the various granting agencies, etc. Probably ran about $1 million. Our share of that was very little. I don't know that that's going to be a possibility going forward. And we have something like 5 streams across our property that get deeper and wider every year, and more dangerous. So we would need to figure out how to manage that fund. We don't have a plan for that yet. Okay, so we did that Survey Monkey, and kind of put the basic concept out there to try and get a sense from the community as to what they thought. And I already mentioned that there were lots of questions. I just want to point out the limitations of that study. It was less than a quarter. If there's 899 homes, there was less than a quarter, but just less than a quarter who responded. However, that could be 2, 3 people in the same house. Some people took the survey more than once. Some people forwarded it elsewhere. So we don't know for sure how many of these people were actually Meadowview people. But there were lots of questions and comments, and they fell into 5 main categories around the project infrastructure, which Stuart has explained. It's just a stream restoration that's there already. How the credit value is determined, how sale proceeds will be managed, TBA, potential restrictions on ownership and land use, and concern about intrusive government oversight. And I think you dealt with the last one too. So can you go there? These are just some of the slides from the 5-question Survey Monkey that we had. 177 people said they wanted to have an election. About 50% of people said with that initial presentation that went out that they had enough information to vote. That means we need to have a lot more information out there. And regarding a sale, a lot of people were cautiously receptive to it, but contingent upon getting their questions answered. All right, this is the big question. How would a credit sale limit our ability to develop our land as we wish? Some considerations. The stream, we saw the footprint, it's pretty narrow. We already are very limited in what we can do with all the streams on our property. They are designated as waterways, and that means they are under the jurisdiction of the Army Corps of Engineers, San Diego Regional Water Quality Control Board, California Fish and Wildlife, and then of course the City of Temecula issues the grading permits. So we can't just do what we want around streams. If we were to put that pickleball court on a shallow depression, we couldn't find anywhere else to put it. We have the opportunity to create other stormwater credits. So say we were to take some of that funding and fix one of our streams to make it safe. We could build in berms, shallow depressions, water bars, voila, more credits, more sale possibility. Could potentially be an ongoing revenue stream. Okay, next slide, please. And that's really it. This is some of the documentation that gets us there. The MS4 permit is I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. But if you really want to get in the weeds, you can break it out and find where there is where it is possible to kind of do alternative compliance with nature-based projects. There's a water quality equivalence, which is a really smart math person, came up with the calculation for the credits. And there's some other stuff there too. So that's it for me. And now I think that's question.
Yep. Just 1 second. So Jen, in just a second, I love the enthusiasm. Jen's going to walk around and start handing off the microphone for those who have questions. Reminder, please try to keep it to less than a minute. And I'm just going to give this back to the panel because you don't want me answering questions because I'll just make stuff up.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I have a question about your speaker system. I got to tell you something. I don't understand a word you're saying because it's got probably too much bass tuned into it, and I'm old. I'm sorry, I'm old, and my hearing is not 100%, but you guys, if I can't read what's going on up there, I don't know what's going on. So I would suggest we either improve our speaker system so us old folks can understand what's going on. Otherwise, I'm just wasting my time being here.
Okay.
Unless I can read up here, which I've been doing.
Okay.
But I can't understand a word you guys are saying.
We got it. We got it.
Noted.
Yeah, Tim?
Sorry, I just have to.
Got it? Okay.
Thank you, that was a great presentation, answered a lot of my questions. I do believe that we're not selling land because a lot of people are saying we're selling land, and I believe we're not giving up access, but my question would be about the taxable income part. You
Hold
said
it closer to your mouth.
we'd have to look into whether or not that money was taxable, and if it would affect our nonprofit or the nonprofit status. Who does that, and what is the process for that?
I throw that on Mike.
Mike?
Yeah, so,
Hey, Mike, can you repeat your question? Because
I'm sorry, I didn't want to
You
get
have to
off.
hold the mic really close to your mouth.
Oh, I'm too close.
There you go.
No, my question was,
Yeah, pretty much.
if we earn money, they did mention it might affect our status as nonprofit, and I wanted to know if that was taxable and if that would affect our nonprofit status and change a lot of things. So who's gonna look into that?
Well, I'll look into that. I don't know the answer to it. I'm not qualified. We probably want to talk to our CPAs, possibly legal, in regards to actually find out how that will play out. That's right.
Because that could like tank the whole thing, right?
It would make it very different, because then all of a sudden we would have a tax burden. You know, we would have just gotten money in, but we would also have a tax burden we weren't necessarily
You give up a
if
lot
we
for
were no
your
longer
nonprofit.
nonprofit.
You give up a lot of benefits.
Well, yeah, right, and the question then is it nonprofit just for that 1 year, or we go back to nonprofit the following year, just based on income for that year? I got a feeling that's the way it would play out. I don't know. I'm not gonna tell you.
Good question.
Just to add on to that, Cindy, I mean, I don't know the answer to it, but we wouldn't have to sell credits all at once. I mean, maybe we could kind of drip feed along, you know, and avoid hitting any kind of barrier. I'm sure someone in this room knows the answer to that question. But anyway, that's one option. We could retain some for that pickleball court, which will need stormwater credits, honestly. Or there's other options.
addressing the income to the association, your example showed was based on a 1 inch of rainfall and a potential income. I understand it's a one-off, so you sell them once and that's it. So would it be based on 1 inch of rain, or would it be annual rain, or what would be the actual basis so that we could determine as homeowners what is the capitalization of this? Is it worth our while, basically?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Really good question. So,
Can you hold that up a little bit too?
sure. Can you guys hear me?
Now I
Better?
can hear you better.
So the stormwater credits and stormwater compliance is generally based off of 1 inch of rainfall. That's what's called the first flush of rainfall. So basically the first 1 inch of rainfall that falls on a neighborhood or community tends to wash it clean, and any rainfall after that is essentially clean water. And so when we're looking at stormwater, quantifying how big BMPs need to be, how much pollution is being generated, we look at 1 inch of rainfall as the first flush of all the pollutants being washed off of that site.
Okay, so that your model is basically the potential income, what you showed, that monetary range. And that would be a one-off, that comes to us one time and that's it.
That's correct.
If this goes through, how long would the construction take, and what would the impact of that construction be as far as limiting access to the different amenities or the meadow itself?
That's a fantastic question, and the answer is that no construction would need to take place. Everything's in place right now. As it is, it's generating this credit. All you have to do is document it and list it for sale.
Thank you.
Okay, so my question is for the city representatives. I know the answer to this question because I talked to, and this morning, I've been working since Saturday the 6th of December to get a city representative
to the Meadowview meeting residents are having on Saturday the 13th. I found out a few days before who the speakers would be tonight. There was no mention of a city representative would be at the meeting tonight. I was told on Tuesday, just before the city council meeting, that a representative would be coming to our meeting on Saturday. When was the city asked to come to this meeting tonight? And I would also like you to confirm that you will be here on Saturday to answer more questions.
Hello, everybody. So I'm Ron Marino, Assistant Director of Public Works for the City of Temecula. Next to me is Annie Foster-Lee. She's our Stormwater Project Manager. And to answer the question directly, I was asked right before council meeting by City Council to attend this meeting. So that's when I found out I was going to attend. And I will be here Saturday as well.
I have a question. Oh, yes. Okay. My question is perpetuity. I understand that this agreement, once it's signed, it's engraved in stone. How do we undo this contract if it doesn't work out for the homeowner, for the property owner? Or can we?
So as part of this project, I'm going to speak as the City of Temecula Land Use Authority. So this applies to any development, not just the HOA here for Meadowview. So in a situation where someone is trying to generate credits and they have an approved plan and an approved WQMP, Water Quality Management Plan, that Stuart mentioned, when we bring those credits into the system of the city, and we are asked at that point, we need some type of agreement over the property that is generating these credits. So in your case, for the HOA, we would be requiring a conservation easement over the meadow. Now, it could be a conservation easement or it could be a deed restriction, but either way, there's going to be language in the deed that is going to indicate that it is in a conservation mode in perpetuity. Now, if you wanted to dial that back, as Stuart mentioned, you would have to generate a different project to take back those credits. So that would be the avenue you would take to do that. Now, most likely, if you do this and you do sell these credits, that's going to be in place for a very, very long time. I don't see it being dialed back at any time. But that is the method that we would use to document that the meadow is now in a conservation easement. One of the things I wanted to mention too is that even though this is unique with regards to water quality, okay, so this is the first. However, this is very similar to what we call mitigation banks. So when developers come in and they need to offset something, for instance, I'll give you an example, the Altair development above Old Town. Homes are coming in there that's been approved. Well, there's the San Diego ambrosia. It's a weed, it's an herb that is protected. And they need to find a bank, a location that offsets their destruction of that herb, or they need to translocate it, move it to this mitigation bank. So there are mitigation banks for environmental purposes all over the place. So this essentially would be another mitigation bank, but it's for water quality purposes. And the meadow would have to stay the meadow in perpetuity, unless you did something down the road to reverse it.
But my understanding was, when I read the brochure that you put out, that the understanding that I have under what's written is that it's perpetuity and that there's no going back. Once it's signed off, it's signed off. So it's the purchaser. People are saying, well, we can buy it back. Well, no, you don't buy back the encumbrance, correct?
Correct. You don't buy back what you generated. You would have to come up with another engineered system to generate those credits. So, because the developer, whoever it is buying credits from developer A, from developer B, their project was approved because they couldn't meet water quality standards. So they're using your meadow to meet their water quality standards. So therefore, that project that was approved, maybe a hotel in Old Town Temecula or something, they have documented that they purchased those credits. So therefore, they have to stay in perpetuity unless it's dialed back, which would be, in my opinion, difficult.
So is their cost driven by the square footage of the area that they're building on?
No, as Stuart mentioned, it's a water quality volume. It's based on volume of water, and so it's the volume. So when he came up with that area and the amount of water that was being cleaned, that generated a certain amount of credit. That's an engineered calculation that is dictated by our own standards. So it's that 1 inch of rainfall for a certain amount. That's an engineered formula that's required, and it's not just us. I mean, it's flood control. It's all over the place. So everybody has to design for that 1 inch of volume.
I'm going to request everybody, please wait to ask your question until you have the microphone in your hand. Right now, Dave Irwin, you've got the microphone.
Real quick, first of all, thank you guys for all the information. I appreciate it. I have a question. So I understand that we will be the first to do this. Is there any examples out there that a simple homeowner such as myself who don't know a whole bunch about this can take a look at and get some information from what other communities have done with similar experiences being presented to them?
Well, we don't have communities that have done this before, but we have examples of where developments have utilized alternative compliance credits. So, for instance, there's a hotel being built, you can see from the freeway on, what was that, Madison? It's right by Boot Barn. So they're doing the Ever Home Suites there. They couldn't meet all their water quality needs. They had to purchase some water quality credits.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm not looking for examples of purchasing. I'm looking for examples of selling the credits.
No, there's no communities that
Okay,
do that.
so that's very important.
This is a first.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have several different questions. One, is this going to be described by a specific meets and bounds description or a general description across the entire meadow?
I noticed Hans brought a map that shows the meadow and the legal description of the meadow. The HOA has options there. Like, you could do a deed restriction or conservation easement over the entirety of that parcel because it is all one big APN. However, as Stuart goes through, and if you guys choose to go this route, and he creates the WQMP, the Water Quality Management Plan, and defines where the stream restoration occurred. If the HOA so chooses, you could do a parcel map and portion out just the stream, and then that way that is where the deed restriction goes, over the stream, not the rest of the meadow. There are options, but that's for you guys to decide, not for the city to decide, whatever you guys want to do.
How was that calculation that you did done? Was it based upon the entire meadow or was it based upon just the stream area?
It's a good question. The features that capture and store the water and soak it in the ground are those blue areas. Can you stick back to that map? So they're isolated. It's not the entire meadow that's generating the credits. It's just the.
What is the maximum amount of area that you could use positively?
It would just be the limits of along the creek that is needed to generate the.
So if they did a meets and bounds description of just that area, there would be no other obligation across the entire rest of the meadow?
No, sir.
Okay. That area that's currently shown there, that I'm talking about a meets and bounds description in, do we not have obligations already that if we were to do anything, I mean, I think there's a gas easement across there, there's a water easement across there, and I believe, Terry, if I'm right, we would owe the $900,000 or $1 million that we've already gotten to fix that up. We'd have to pay that back if we ever wanted to develop that area, that specific area.
it would be very difficult to develop anything in your stream area because there are jurisdictional boundaries by Fish and Wildlife, by the Army Corps. To do that would be an impossible task because they would designate it as jurisdictional. It has to be protected. So you're already under that obligation to protect it. It's just you don't have credits and you don't have a conservation easement over it. But you could never develop in the stream. That's a non-starter.
One more question.
Sure.
When we are obligating just that specific area, does that not also help prevent anybody from wanting to come through and build this street down through our meadow?
Who wants to build a street?
Well, it's come up several times in the city.
They've
I'm-
always been the question of whether they put pina colada through the middle.
Oh. No, well, first of all, the conservation easement in place would prevent anything from happening in the meadow, anything at all. So that's number one. Number two, to try to get a street through your meadow would be an environmental nightmare and challenge. Like, I just can't see it happening. I think that over time, and both Annie and I have been here 30 years, so she's been at the city for 30 years, I was engineering here for 30 years, I designed Harveston, the mall, and then the city came knocking and asked me to come work for them, which was great, I love it. But our job now is to protect the residents and protect quality of life, and we serve at the direction of council. They give us our marching orders. We don't have opinions. We just take the facts and we listen to council. To try to get a street through the meadow, it couldn't be permitted, so that's just, seems like an impossible task.
So this doesn't kind of make sense to me that it's just these ponds. These ponds don't fill up by themselves. They actually have runoff that comes down and fills up the depressions. So that would have to be included under an encumbrance because it's fresh water, clean water, right? So I couldn't just go out there and start fertilizing out there. I couldn't put grapes in there and fertilize them. I couldn't do a lot of things above these depressions, or it would defeat the purpose of the fresh water.
Correct, and that's why the conservation easement gets put in place to not allow any of those uses.
Within the boundaries of your conservation,
Correct.
not on a person's lot.
No, we're just talking about the meadow.
Wait a minute, you just said that you were talking specifically about the meets and bounds area of the creek, and now you're saying across the entire meadow.
Oh, I said before, it's up to you guys. You could be the entire meadow or just the creek. It's up to the HOA. You have options, as I said, you have flexibility in how you do that. The city would be open to a parcel map, the city would be open to any one of those. So it's either or, and it's totally up to the HOA.
So in the event that we did approve this, and we wanted to go and develop another system, what was the approximate cost of developing this?
Of the stream restoration, I'll leave that to.
We went in 2 phases, and overall it probably cost about $1 million. I don't have all the figures in front of me. And the vast majority of that came from flood control and grant funding.
I didn't actually want to ask 2 questions, but just to follow up, I think what I'm hearing is that the water quality management plan is going to dictate how much of the area is going to be used. So if you write into the water quality management plan that it's the runoff from the hills above the stream, then they're included. If you don't put that in the water quality management plan, then it's not included. So, and it's up to the HOA to decide, and with their experts, what does the water quality management plan look like? I'm talking about the hills of the meadow above the stream. I'm all around the inside of the meadow.
And so you have to decide what's gonna make up the water quality management plan. My question is, when we talk about an act of God, who determines the threshold that it was an act of God? Or did I hear you correctly that even normal wear and tear over any given winter does not have to be repaired? That's correct. Okay. And then this is just kind of a general comment. The meadow is already scrubbing and collecting water, right? Whether we sell water credits or not. So a developer comes in and we let him off the hook. The state of California is not gaining extra clean water. We're just letting them off the hook from having to build it into their community.
Can I just comment on that? I don't think that's exactly true, because the water those structures were built specially to prevent water from coming down the hills and go straight into the stream and causing erosion. Instead, they're going into the ponds, and so that water would be entering the MS4 permit area. Now it's not, because it's trapped by those ponds. So there is an ecological benefit that we are giving to the watershed wide by having those ponds. So I don't think it's, yeah.
Talking about the developer who now buys credits for something we're already doing with the state. And then so that developer is off the hook from having to do something in his community to generate more.
You're right. And the question is, do we monetize this benefit or not?
So from a long-term perspective of a resident of California, am I generating more clean water? I'm not.
Okay. So there was a report that came out by Rancho Water, dated November 21. I'm sure the board received it. It did show that phase 1, for lack of a better word, failed. The erosion became a problem because of the bioengineering method used. My question is, I don't know who's going to fix it. There is another document that states that Rancho Water cannot go beyond their easement because it took public funds in the stream. So my question is, if we do this conservation in the stream, and we have to still repair the phase 1 because their pipelines are about to be exposed, and will they allow us to fix it, or is that going to be a component problem? So what I'm saying is, this report was done by Rancho Water because their pipelines are about to be exposed due to our inability to keep the erosion from happening because of the 2019 flood.
Okay, Lucy, I'm in frequent contact with Rancho Water, and I've never heard anything like that. They did a geomorphology study some time ago because we were asking for their support. I don't know what you're talking about. I've seen the geomorphology report, and what they said with that report was they were looking at ways that they could, in perpetuity, protect that line, but Rancho Water has indicated. Well, do you want me to finish or not? Over time, Rancho Water is going to decommission those water lines because they do not think it's viable. And yes, they do not agree that a bioengineered solution is 100% forever 100-year solution.
Okay, so I don't know what you're speaking of. I'm speaking of the 21 report, and the pipelines are still here, okay, and they're not going away. And they estimated anywhere from 700 to over $1.5 million to fix it. Don't know who's going to pay it, but they do have to protect their pipes until they are decommissioned, whenever that happens. If you don't have the report, I'll be happy to send it to you. It's a 450-page report done by Hazen, and I should see them.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm wondering about if there's any potential that any of this is not owned by us, where we make our decisions once it's sold to somebody else, or another agency can come in and have domain. And my husband's gonna answer state the other part of my concern.
So I'm a radio frequency radiation engineer. And you can hear me now? Yes. Yeah, okay. So I'm a radio frequency radiation engineer, and since 1991, Richard Nixon had put in this the law that prohibits the FCC from installing antennas. But that has since 1996 been eliminated. So radio frequency devices can be installed anywhere. They don't have to do an environmental impact statement. So that's another problem that we're open to.
In other words, if somebody else has control, they could come in and put some kind of antennas or cells, if they just make money for us, and put something very close to residences that can cause cancer or other health concerns, is what I'm wondering about.
So we deal a lot with wireless facilities at the city. First of all, to the first part of the question, there is no land being sold. There is no transfer of title, no ownership changes with regards to water quality. So the meadow owned by the HOA would forever be owned by the HOA until you deemed otherwise. Regarding the wireless facilities, I do understand what the gentleman's talking about, but that is in the public right-of-way, that we have to allow certain antennas, and they do have a right to be there. We are very careful in our code of how we allow these wireless facilities to be in public right-of-way. If anyone wanted to put a wireless facility in the meadow, they would have to go to the HOA and get approval. And we would ask for that approval by the HOA to put a wireless facility in a private land, which I don't think you guys would do. So they would need HOA approval in order to be on private property. Now, public right-of-way, they have a right, as you said. That's it.
Hi, Mr. Koontz, please define encumbrance. There's a lien on our property? Encumbrance.
An encumbrance is any type of right that is affected to a property. So an encumbrance would be an easement, it could be a facility, it could be anything else. In this situation, because it's a natural stream, you don't have any encumbrances upon the property. You don't have any encumbrances that would indicate, like, for instance, we're not going to come out and inspect. I mean, what would we do? We'd come out here and say, is the stream still there? Yep. And move on. So the encumbrances that are in that paragraph are for engineered systems. You guys don't have an engineered system. You have a natural system. So therefore, I think it's a little confusing in that way, because you won't have encumbrances upon the property other than the conservation easement.
And could you please describe how the conservation easement will limit our access to the meadow?
None. It will not. It's still your meadow. You own it. You can access it. All it says is that for conservation purposes, the stream would always have to function as a stream as the way it is today.
Can we walk in the stream? Can we ride horses in the stream?
Yes.
Okay, so how in other way, how many acres does this involve?
What's the maximum?
I don't know the exact acreage of the stream piece. It's 3,000 feet long, and the width varies how wide we carry.
I mean, it's like probably 30 feet out. the street, I don't know the.
160. It's 160 feet.
160 feet across?
160 feet wide and 3,000 feet long, roughly, rough dimension.
The only encumbrance is the conservation easement. Stating that the stream would be there in perpetuity and function as a stream in its natural state. And the answer to your question is it's about 11 acres.
It's our moral obligation to conserve as much water in our common area as totally possible, because that's what it's good for. And people who object to us conserving water on an open space area should be ashamed of themselves. The moral obligation for us is to do the most we can with the land we have to help the whole area. And that's all I've got to say.
I would agree, you guys have a beautiful meadow, and obviously it needs to stay in place forever. The question before you tonight that I think Terry is asking, or the board is contemplating, is do you want to monetize it or not? Because it's already functioning in that way. It's already functioning as a natural stream.
Okay, so I had a question and several questions about the water quality management plan, the initial cost, and then any updates that we might want to do. Again, if we limited the water quality management plan to certain areas, we restricted it based on the meets and bounds, right? And then we could initiate a supplemental management plan, right? As the need increases, right? As the local community develops and there's greater demand and potential greater revenue that we wouldn't get if we put it all in one bank at the beginning. We get that over time. So, who is the burden? Who's the burden on for the development of water control or the water quality management plan?
I'm sorry, repeat that. Who is the what?
Who's on the hook for the cost of developing the water quality management plans?
The cost to develop the water quality management plan would be borne by the HOA to develop the water quality management plan. And you want to speak on that, Terry?
Yeah, so we'd have to do a water quality management plan, and that would happen only in the event that the community voted 450 yes votes. We don't spend any money until that
Do we have
happens.
any idea of how much that would cost?
Yeah, 30K.
30,000.
Yeah.
Another question, who holds the credits? For the city is not involved. Who holds the credit?
We are partially involved. We have, and during Stewart's time, he was very familiar with how we document the credits. So the city attorney has approved our credit trading system. This could be the city creating a project, using those credits for development. This could be developer initiating, or it could be developer to developer. In this case, you guys would be considered a developer. So it's you in a private agreement with a developer to sell these credits. However, they must be tracked at the city. So it's documented so that we're kind of acting as a third party neutral. So we make sure that the WQMP that's prepared is accurate. We document the amount of credits, and then we approve that a new development, let's say a hotel, can utilize those credits for their development, and there's a, spreadsheet formula and everything to determine how many credits they can get at your value. So we're out of it in regards to you, the HOA, determine the price. However, we track the credits, and we make sure that those credits are not only tracked at the city, but then assigned to your parcel. So we would have it in our own system, in our permitting system, that APN of the HOA sold water quality credits, and forever then, if ever you guys had an application or wanted to do something with the meadow, we would see that there were water quality credits that were applied to a different project in your meadow.
The city manages.
The city manages the credits.
Purchase.
We would not get involved in the purchase when it comes to.
How is the money handled?
That's in escrow, in a third party, we're out of that. We don't get involved in that.
You had your hand up. That's
You had said that the depth of the water was about 18 inches and would absorb into the ground in about 72 hours. Is that based only on the inch of rainfall, or is the actual ability of that depression only to hold 18 inches of water? If we got 3 inches of water, would it be deeper and take longer to soak into the ground?
Yeah, so the part of that WQMP, that 30,000 budget, includes geotechnical testing to test what the actual percolation rate of the soils under those might be and how quickly that would go in, how that 18 inches of water would go in. Again, I think that's the maximum. 18 inches is only the maximum allowable for regulation. It may only be 6 or 12 inches, I'm not sure exactly. But basically, you look at the soil's ability to take water in, and it's usually in inches per hour. And then you divide however many inches by that rate, and it tells you how many hours it will take for that water to soak into the ground. And that water just goes right into the groundwater, and replenishes the groundwater.
So those depressions are only of a depth of like 18 inches, and any additional water from rainfall would go into the stream bed or surrounding areas.
Right, if you got over an inch rainfall, those depressions would overtop, and there's structures to safely convey that down into the creek. So once those get full, I think they spill from one to another, they go from one to another until they're all full. And then once all of them are full, then they spill down back into the creek through like a engineered riprap conveyance, gets it safely back into the creek, and then that continues down the creek and into the lower waters.
So that's good. My concern was mosquito nurseries, but it sounds like that wouldn't happen. My other question is, you were talking about not wanting water retention ponds like in Old Town or whatever. Are existing structures in the city, though, already grandfathered in that they don't have to now provide, in retrospect, some kind of water retention in Old Town that's existed since 18?
That's correct. Anything that was in place prior to the regulations being passed is grandfathered in. But whenever you go and redevelop those structures, so if you tear something down and rebuild something new, then water quality regulations come into place. And the projects, I think somebody made a comment before that the developers are let off the hook. They're not let off the hook. They still have to put filtration devices on the water that comes off their property. It has to be filtered, but it's more compact and it fits into that environment.
Hi, my question is for the city experts probably. How robust is this market? Currently it's 12 to 15. What is the projections in the future given the development in Temecula?
So development is continuing to go pretty strong. We have not seen a downtick yet in the housing market. We have seen a little bit of a slowdown in commercial applications, but so far it's holding true to what it's been for the last couple of years. And so, those prices that were set, estimates, those are estimates, have been holding. And so we have multiple projects that are inquiring about credits.
I heard you say that whatever land we put into this conservatory would be in perpetuity. So if we restrict it only to the stream area, the rest of the meadow is not so protected. Is that correct?
Correct.
As a general engineering and building contractor for 45 years, mostly in the government arena, it seems to me that developers loathe an empty lot. And I've long been a little paranoid perhaps about our meadow. Would it be in our best interest, in your opinion, to lock up the entire meadow, stream and all? And if we only did the stream area, the storm credits would be vastly reduced, wouldn't they?
The what would be vastly reduced? I'm saying.
Our stormwater credits, if we only did just that stream area.
No, the credits are going to be based upon the stream restoration project that was completed. So that's what the credits are generated on, not the entirety of the meadow. Of course, if you did any other work and Stuart put that into the WQMP, you could get other credits from other projects you may do, which would be nice. But at the current state of affairs, from the way I understand it, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys are looking at doing a WQMP for the stream restoration project that was done, and therefore those credits are already quantified. It's just you haven't done the formal record-keeping documentation, you know, and actually have them now tracked at the city.
If by locking up the entire meadow, it shuts off development, period. Is that correct?
It's a conservation easement would not allow development on the
Yeah,
meadow.
my vote.
So along those same lines, then, would we have to then break up in order to make sure that you don't get the whole meadow, to make sure that it's just the stream, to initialize just that parcel and pay to have it parcelized into one, the stream, two, the rest of the meadow, to ensure that you cannot encroach on the rest of our meadow?
Yeah, that's a choice for you as an HOA if you want to parcelize and do a parcel map and get just the stream on one parcel and the meadow on the other. That's a HOA decision.
Right, but that would make it official, right? So that, hello, this is it.
Right.
Correct.
And then along those same lines, if we did that, and let's say the stream then starts eroding because we get heavy rain, which then encroaches past that parcel that we've done, are you now going to say, oh, hold on, the stream now is in your meadow, that's part of our conservatory, or?
No, part of acts of God is the fact that, yeah, a stream, if Temecula hadn't been developed, your streams would do what we call morphology. They move. Streams don't stay where they're originally were. Part of an act of God is it changes the direction of a stream. Now, if it turned into a health and safety issue, conservation easement or not, you guys would repair it. So it doesn't stop the HOA from doing what you need to do to make sure that people are safe. If all of a sudden you had sheer vertical banks again where kids could, you know, be playing and have an accident, then you guys would rectify that. So conservation easement does not mean, oh, I can't touch it at all. You would have your own still maintenance program and everything else if you wanted to. The conservation easement merely states that it will forever be a water quality system and it cannot be developed in any other manner.
From A to B, though. I mean, if
Correct.
the stream pushes it over here, that's not your easement. Your easement still ends.
Your easement is the parcel, if you parcelize, if you just do the whole meadow as the conservation easement, then it doesn't matter where the stream goes.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Take that from him.
I'm sorry, but my concern is not parcelizing the meadow. The meadow is going to be the meadow unless 51% of the homeowners voted differently. And I can't imagine anybody who lives in Meadowview to vote that way, let alone 51%. So I think it's a non-issue, and people shouldn't get too concerned about it. I would suggest that we utilize the stream to conserve as much water as flows through it so it can settle into our groundwater system. And that won't hurt a thing. I mean, there's plenty of space along the stream bed, even to widen it or to build a pond on it to salvage water. And there should be no objection for some engineering to be done for that purpose.
Has anybody who's not asked a question ready to ask one?
All the way back here.
Can you tell me in 10 years, are we not gonna have like concrete basins, catch basins, and anything like that on any hill or flatland?
Oh, Lord, no. Over my dead body.
Can you put that in writing?
Happy to, in blood.
Put it in blood, because I want to hold that accountable, because anytime anybody says water credits, how do you vouch for that and not put in catch basins, concrete basins, the big freaking aqueducts off the hill? I see it coming.
Let the city answer. It's not.
What, okay. We already have the project in place. We're not talking about building a flood control depression or something awful like that. The project that we have that we're quantifying the credits on is that stream out there that has all kinds of nice plants growing in it. So it's not what I think you're envisioning.
If we already have the stream and it's there, why are we selling on land?
We're not selling land. We retain the land.
Once you contract with the city, you're selling land.
No, there is no land transfer. The city does not take the land. This is monetizing a water quality benefit. So no land is being exchanged, and I'll further that. No matter who buys these water quality credits, we're not documenting where they came from. They have no right to the meadow. So we will, that was, since Stewart's departure, that was one thing that we did get back from the city attorney, is that we are leaving out where the credits came from. So it is, you have an agreement with the developer, but in the document itself, it's not going to say, hey, we have a right to, that these are where the water quality credits came from. So that is one thing that the city attorney has mentioned. So once again, no land transfer whatsoever.
So what's for sale?
Just the water credits.
The water quality, the benefits that you as a HOA avail yourselves to, in the fact that you're cleaning water in the stream. So another developer would like to piggyback on you and say, well, Meadowview is cleaning this amount of water, can we, purchase some of their, water cleaning benefits, is what it is. And so then they're able to go forward. So what it comes down to is that the Meadow and the HOA are cleaning more than enough than what your development actually takes in. And so therefore, since you have this delta, you have extra benefits, that is where you monetize.
If we vote to go ahead with this process and we pay for an engineering report, can the city deny our application? So that we would forfeit what we paid for the engineering report?
No, we cannot deny the application. It would be an application for a WQMP based upon grading permits that the HOA already obtained a couple of years ago when you did the stream restoration project. So back it up. If we knew what we knew now, because this is a new program, most likely the HOA would have submitted a WQMP at the same time when you guys obtained the grading permits from the city a couple of years ago to do the stream restoration project. So you probably would have submitted at that time. However, this program came into place after you guys did the stream restoration project. So therefore, that is why Stuart had the great idea of, let's revisit the stream restoration project, do a WQMP for the work you've already done, and then you would monetize those credits.
So it's a slam dunk.
Well, I've got to review Stuart's report. I'm going to plan check it. So I don't know.
Okay, I have a question. So if we go ahead with this process, do we get the vote from the association before we start investing all the money into all the reports? It's going to cost them, $1 million or something like that to get this thing. I'd rather know the association is good with it before we went anywhere. So.
Well, we try to be financially prudent, and it is a real huge long shot to get 450 votes. We really have to work that, and then only then would we spend that money. But that would be part of the vote. Do we want to spend money on a WPP for this process?
And really, we're not selling any land whatsoever. The only thing we're selling is what we've already got in place, and that's a stream bed that not very many places in Temecula have. And we're selling those water quality credits to developers to be able to do their projects, basically, correct? Right. Perfect.
Hi, I'd like to know if there's any entity or person getting commission for going into a community and helping them develop a plan to get self-water credit. If anybody's getting commission or any kind of pay for that.
So your question is about compensation to us?
Well, my understanding is like somebody comes to community and says, hey, you have this asset, you could sell water credits. Is an entity or person getting any type of commission or funds for developing plans and helping our communities sell these water credits?
So the costs and the only money exchanged would be for that, the $30,000 to develop the WMP would be for engineering and geotechnical services to develop those reports. So those would be professional services. There's no commissions or anything built into that. That's just engineering fees for the cost to do the labor, to put the reports together, to process those with the city, and get those approved with the city.
I think the only person who likely could be getting any funding from this, obviously not you guys, not me, maybe Stuart, but I want to point out that Stuart has a public servant's heart, and I think he's got professional pride in the program that he developed, and really wants to see that it is taken advantage of because there's many benefits that can come out of it. So the answer is no.
Right? Yeah, so I was curious, you had previously mentioned that you were uncertain how the money would be handled, whether it's an endowment, whatever. It seems like a pretty large sum of money, and before an approval were to be made, I think we should know a little bit more about how that would be handled.
Yeah, I agree. I'm only one of 7 board members. My thinking on that would be that this is a long process, that we would, if the board did decide to hold a special election, my suggestion would be that it would be tied to next year's board elections as well. So it's just another line on the ballot, yes or no. And our homework as board members during that intervening year is to come up with that plan. How can the money be spent? I would personally like to see a lot of strings attached, and that it would only go to the meadow, but like I said, I'm only one person. But yeah, that question wouldn't be put to you until we had those answers in place.
Terry, one more. Do we have the ability to use funds from that money to do like riprap, to slow down erosion rates along some of the more dangerous areas of the meadow out there where we have cliff areas?
Is it, if it's a stream,
Yeah, where I'm
put
talking about
riprap?
the
What,
erosion areas further down or further east of us, where you have the higher banks and stuff that are eroding away over time that aren't addressed out there.
yeah, I mean, that would be something that the money could go for, but having said that, riprap is considered an impact by the agencies, which they require mitigation for. So they consider you damaged this particular area of stream, so you're going to have to compensate for that injury, and it's usually at a ratio of 3 to 1. So we would have to go to another mitigation bank and buy about 3 times the amount of impact somewhere else. And the last time I checked, buying an acre of riparian area, which is what streams are considered, is about $500,000. So the only practical, in my opinion, the only practical way to fix our streams, the dangerous ones, is to do it through nature, because we can put some hard structures in, but we can mitigate on site by planting plants and doing that kind of thing.
If I may for 1 second, I see you, I know. If you have a question that has not been asked before, and you personally have not asked a question, and you have not, you've already asked it. If you have not asked a question, please raise your hand. Okay. So these would be our last 2 questions. After that, I did speak to the panel. They are willing to stick around if you have further questions, or if you would like to get an email address, I'll figure out how to exchange that. They're happy to answer questions over email, but I respect it, but we're going to try to wrap up as soon as we can.
Pointed information.
Sir, we've already, so you had a question back there?
I had 2, but they're not long. One is that
I lived here when we got 80 inches of rain.
you indicated that it captures about 375 gallons of water that translates to 50,000 credits approximately. My question is, do we have to sell all 50,000 credits to one developer, or that could be split up between different developers? It's credit-based?
Very good question. No, you don't. You have the option of how many of those 50,000 credits you even put up for sale. You could create the credits and not list any of them, and only offer them to people that want to develop in your neighborhood. Or
So we could sell 25,000 to one, 10,000 to another, even at different prices.
You can even reserve them for yourself. If you were to do like a new clubhouse or a new facility, you're going to have to do stormwater features on that. Instead of having that cost for whatever you were to build, you could use them for your own projects, your own improvements. You could reserve them for the members of the community for undeveloped lots, because they're going to have to do stormwater compliance on there. You could do a bunch of different things. You could put all of them up, you could put none of them up, you could put 10%, like it's up to you. And the price that you advertise them at and the price that you want for them, that's also up to you. Okay. You have full control.
And then Director Moreno, I trust you, I totally believe you when you say that the language having to do with any kind of inspection and stuff has to do with something that was engineered and not a natural area.
Correct.
But I've also worked with enough attorneys where I get nervous about them saying, well, it doesn't say you can't go on there. So is there any specific language that says that natural areas like that are excluded from those types of inspections or easements or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, well, we have it documented in our engineering and construction manual. So the inspections that Annie oversees here have to do with engineered systems. So what we report to the state, or actually to flood control, is we report the inspections we've done on engineered systems. So the flood control and the state water board is not going to question us regarding, hey, did you go inspect a natural system of a stream bed? So we have no obligation, nor do we have the time to come out and look at natural systems. Only in, I mean, yeah, as long as it stays natural. I mean, when it comes to the easement and we start talking about how that language is, that would be something I would work with the HOA with as well, what that language sounds like. So it's not going to be us dictating. I'll work with whatever engineer that the board comes up with, and we'll come up with a language that is acceptable to the HOA and to the city attorney. Mm-hmm.
Were there any other questions that you did not already ask a question?
So is this the only thing that's holding up Altair? The development, are we holding them up?
No.
No?
No, Altair Development is going forward. They're going to start grading here probably in the next couple of months.
So they've already got credits?
No, they are at a point where they don't need them quite yet.
Okay, last question of the evening, please, the microphone somewhere, please.
I have a quick question. I think Stuart, you kind of answered it. If we take that 600,000, whatever it is, and sell it, if the HOA down the road decides to build another building, we now have to find somebody else to buy that from, or we could use part of that funding and set another fund and create more.
Yeah, well, you could either buy them out of a credit bank for another project, or you could do another project somewhere else. You have other streams. There's other ways you could even generate more credits in your meadow by doing similar projects to perpetually create funding and credits. Yeah, huge opportunities. Yeah.
Everybody, thank you very much. We're a couple minutes over. Very much. I'd like to thank our panel for donating their time to come and answer questions about the work that's done.